before I talk about our brand voice on social, I want to share with you a story. This will be a little bit of the theme of today because I love telling stories, but rest assured, according to Guinness World Records, all of my stories are true. So I want to share with you my favourite moment of working at Guinness World Records, which is the day that I met and spent a week with the tallest man. So this is Sultan Kozan from Turkey. He's 8'3", and I'm 5'3" without my heels. And he'd never left his village of Turkey before. In fact, his job was holding up a sign for the local restaurant when he was first sent, his details were sent to us. But we brought him to New York. Levi made him custom jeans, Converse made him trainers. We spent the whole week hanging out together, even took him to a baseball game and he threw the first pitch. But the moment that I really remember when we're walking around New York, as you do, gazing up at the buildings, is that he said for the first time in his life, he felt small, which I just thought was such a wonderful thing to be able to share, and lots of other stories along the way. Rather than give you the history lesson, I'm going to spend about 90 seconds showing you what Guinness World Records as a brand looks like today before I start to talk to you guys about us on social. So you can see we've come a long way in 65 years, but in order to survive, particularly as a publishing business, we've really had to embrace disruption to survive and, more importantly, remain relevant to our audiences. I'm going to take you back in time a little bit here. The first platforms we launched were on YouTube in 2006 and Facebook in 2007, and I've decided to show you the most embarrassing video I could find because our content was pretty primitive back then and very different to what you'd expect to see today. This was the first ever piece of content that we posted on Facebook. We made an advert about our Gamers Edition, and this is what it looked like. You see, pretty terrible, right? But we've come quite a long way since then. We've had some exciting milestones along the way. Back in 2012, we launched our second channel in collaboration with YouTube called Guinness World Records OMG, which starred up-and-coming vloggers who are now YouTube megastars. So Ollie White, Zoella and Vsauce were just three of the names that cut their teeth on Guinness World Records OMG. And interestingly, although the channel is still alive today, it actually bucks every trend because we've put no new content up for several years, but it continues to get millions of fans from the people who loved watching the guys before they were famous and that they still follow them. So as we've had to, our evolution from legacy publisher to digital-led multi-platform brand, it's led to a broadening of our audience. So we still look to the mums and the dads as the key decision makers when it comes to buying the book for our publishing business, but actually all of our social media channels and our website pages are hugely popular with millennials, particularly men, which account for about 75% of our audience on Facebook and 88% of our audience on YouTube. What's interesting for me is that our audiences are drawn to the brand, to us, for the same thing. Kids love to share what they're reading in the book, so I get this all the time. Mummy, did you know? And most of the time, because of my job, I pretty much do know the answers. And this is the same reaction as we get from our online audiences because they love to see those stories and share those stories that they discover on our social media channels. But amongst these young book reading fans, the socially savvy millennials, there's a third audience that has come up in the last 10 years with a real appetite for record breaking. And it's actually brands and agencies that have realised that a world record can be a very powerful tool and a catalyst when it comes to staging a spectacular PR stunt or maybe something newsworthy and a shareable story. So although today I'm going to talk to you about a lot of the lessons that we've learned, the good and the bad, representing our brand on social, I'm also going to share with you a few examples of how businesses have used record breaking and have worked with us in order to make their brand voice heard. So I have another quick video to demonstrate some of this here. It's another 90 seconds, it's not long.
Guinness World Records title attempt. Are you ready?
So pretty much never a dull day at Guinness World Records, right? So how do you create and maintain a unique voice on social? For me, authenticity trumps uniqueness every single time, which is the reason I'm showing you this live record attempt behind me now. In this era of fake news and deep fake, it's really important that your brand is authentic and that the brand you represent on social is the real you. Audiences, such as yourselves, very savvy bunch, and they absolutely know if you're pretending or you're telling lies. So the video that's playing here in the background did really well across all of our channels, partly because it's so authentic. And by the way, we do have people watching all 26 hours of videos in terms of steak grilling and something else. You would be quite surprised. But pretty much everyone here can relate to how difficult it would be to support your entire body weight on your pinkies. And this is exactly what he's doing here. Incidentally, Tazio Gavioli was inspired to try this record after his cat lost a paw in an accident to prove to his cat that he could be a record breaker. Very normal story for us in our business. In terms of Guinness World Records, it's really important that our voice is celebratory. After all, we're sharing stories about these amazing individuals that do these extraordinary things that they train for years. So it really helps if we can be enthusiastic and we're celebrating and that the story is really relatable. But one of those biggest challenges is being concise but don't lose the story. Big challenge in maintaining a consistent tone of voice on social is dealing with all those pesky word counts across all the different channels. And so some channels such as TikTok and Snapchat, much better for short form. When it comes to YouTube, you can afford to go for a slightly longer edit. And actually 2 years ago, we created a YouTube series just to do that called Meet the Record Breakers, which gave us the chance to tell, more storytelling again, the story behind the record. And also for us, when you're trying to engage such diverse audiences, you've got to consider your content from different viewpoints. And so, for example, the picture that you see on the far right-hand side was actually the largest canned food mosaic that was done to draw attention to talk about food wastage in the US. But was such a cool image, and all of the kids' audiences love the animals. So we decided to share it on Pop Jam and turned it into a quiz. So this is something that we're trying to get better at as a company, in taking content that comes across from different medias, different countries, different channels, and then reusing it across for our different audiences. And so another thing that we always have to be, which probably sounds a bit basic, but it's something that we always take very seriously. We have a very big global audience and English is not always the first language. So trying to make it really visual, like the examples up here, what's happening in the first few frames. But we have a unique problem because a lot of our record titles are quite long-winded. They have to be in order for it to be accurate, and an official description of the achievement doesn't really help when you're trying to do snappy and engaging copy. So Richard Browning, pictured here behind me. Anyone know Richard Browning? Seen this video before? A few nods in the room. So he's the proud holder of the Guinness World Records title, for the fastest speed in a body-controlled jet engine power suit. Not very snappy, so we went with the real-life Iron Man jet suit speed record. Story got widespread media coverage. He's flying across the pond. And by the way, you can buy this suit in Selfridges if you have £398. There's 25 of them for sale. And this caught the eye of Honda, who then decided to work with him and went on to create some amazing branded content. So where does your brand voice matter the most? Really simple answer, absolutely everywhere. Across all of your own channels, obviously, but if you're entering into partnerships with third parties, don't be seduced by those big audience figures. Go for the brand that is a really good match for your own, where you're sharing your values. You will get much better engagement with a partner whose values match yours and are similar to yours, even if the numbers aren't so high. You can always work up to that and build up. And just as a side issue, be careful when you're working with your brand partnerships that they reference you correctly and that the balance of the relationship is equal. If you don't, you're going to lose an awful lot of impact. Kind of a funny example for us is that we tend to get confused with Great Western Railways, not Guinness World Records. So our social media team receive, complaints about late trains, and they also, the carriages are smelling of sick. Can we please do something about it? But we have a little bit of fun with this, and we have a good relationship to try and make sure that when you're trying to talk to the brand, that you actually get the right one. So social is a very, as you know, ever-shifting landscape. You can't afford to settle back. You can't post the same content day in, day out, and you need to be flexible, just like our lady up here. And we think there's a few different things. I'd like to share a few more stories with you about the things that have worked for us. So I know it sounds really obvious to say listen to your audience, but it's super important and makes a massive difference. We've been working with Jaguar for 3 years now. They wanted an amazing piece of content that would launch their new F-Pace sports car, and it's an SUV in a dramatic style. They did this at the Frankfurt Motor Show. They did the largest loop-the-loop in a production car, broke the record and almost broke the internet. The numbers underneath are the viewers that they had within 24 hours. And then they came back to us 2 years later because we listened to them and worked with them, and then they wanted to do the amazing and death-defying barrel roll. And we really love working with these brands that, as I said earlier, share our values and that we get to make such engaging and creative content with them. And one of the other things we've learned is about content trends. It's really important in terms of trying to keep up with them, but trends in content can also inspire some of the most unusual stories. So hands up if you watch unboxing videos. Okay, I've got 3 people in the room. So unboxing videos is a big trend. I find it kind of quite extraordinary. My kids love it. But also the VP marketing for Volvo saw the success of an unboxing video and decided that would inspire him for the next campaign for Volvo. So I want to show you this video of a great example of how you can really amplify your brand voice on social. Joel says at the end, I'm driving, which my son is also a little bit jealous of. I wanted to tell you the story behind that because the video presented quite a few challenges because you can see the sheer scale of the attempt. We only had 12 hours to film it, and those of you that are eagle-eyed would spot that it was getting dark towards the end of the video, and our adjudicator Michael was really worried that he wasn't going to be able to do the measurement before it actually went dark. And the little boy Joel was so excited and so fast that when he ran around the truck, the cameraman could not keep up with him in terms of running around with the box. But I think this has had some amazing results, and actually it's the most watched film of all time from Volvo. But for me, it really shows that sort of the macho world of trucks, Volvo are not afraid to have a little bit of fun with content and posting this on social with something that is actually super cute and you wouldn't necessarily expect. So my kind of next story to share with you is about experimentation, because as you've seen, being flexible and trying new styles of content can really work. So don't be afraid to experiment, be brave with it. Not everything will work, but if you get it wrong, then you can always stop. Don't beat yourselves up if something isn't a success, and try something different for next time. And sometimes the reaction to a piece of content will completely take you by surprise. So the video that you're watching here, the most costume change illusions in a minute, we were not expecting it to do very well. You'll see it's actually been shot on a mobile phone. It wasn't great quality, but we're finding increasingly that you don't need the quality of video to get the engagement of the fans. So we were absolutely astounded when this was shared across tens of millions of news feeds in just the first few days. Do you want to see the costume at the end? Because I'll keep talking so that you can see that they actually do break the record because she comes out, and you'll see the adjudicator at the end as well. And then I'm going to go on and share with you actually how the results did. So she ends up in her wedding dress. So that's 18 costume changes in one costume change illusions in 1 minute. So Avery and Sylvia here have actually broken that record 3 times. And the video that you've just watched, I hope you can see this, apologies, it's not very clear, but it does show you. So the first time that it was posted and broken was 43.2 million views. But when they broke the record again and again, they got significantly lower views, down to 1.7 million when they tried to break it last year. So for us, that always shows you can't predict a story, had no idea that it was going to be that huge, but also that lightning really doesn't strike twice. Once you've done the story out there, there's a real challenge, I think, for brands to be able to use that content effectively across all of your channels. So before I share my final video, I wanted to touch briefly on content creation and distribution, because for us it's really important as a company, we're not a big company, big brand but not a big company, to develop a collaborative approach to news gathering. And so we encourage and empower everyone in the company and across the internal teams to contribute and share the content with everyone as much as possible. And we try to get into the habit of sharing that content at weekly meetings, and we've set up a talent inbox to help people share the content. And the other thing as well is installing in our team, and we're guilty of this as very much a fourth quarter product when it comes to our book sales, is that we have to do an awful lot of work to maintain a year-round brand presence, because you can't just switch things on when you've got something to sell, even if that happens to be 2.2 million books. So I wanted to share one final film with you before we finish, and possibly take any questions if you have any. And this isn't actually our film, but it's from one of our partners, and they put record breaking at the heart of their story. And as a campaign film, I think it ticks an awful lot of boxes. I won't tell you about the record because it explains it within the video. So I'm not going to read the results out, you can read them for yourselves. But in addition to this, this was one of the most watched videos across Reebok's and Guinness World Records own channels. And Reebok actually encouraged the fitness influencers and the athletes to go out and share their stories across all of their social channels. And then finally, the bit that we were really proud of is that Reebok picked up a Clio Sports Award for this campaign in the partnerships category. So as I said earlier about Jaguar, we're super lucky to be able to work with some of these extraordinary brands who really go above and beyond in working with us to create really unique content that can be shared across all of their channels. And so this is actually the end of our whistle-stop tour of record-breaking stories, but as any of you will know that I was talking to you last night, lots of other stories to share if anyone's interested. Please come and talk to me afterwards. But just 4 things that I'd like to say in summary. Authenticity, be yourselves. You will get found out if you're not. Be authentic and be true to your brand. Flexibility, like this lady up here walking on the champagne bottles. Think about the different ways that you can share all of your different content across your channels. Experimentation, think about Sylvia and Avery and the illusionists. Try something new from time to time. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You can move on to the next amazing thing that you can think of. And finally, collaboration. Find the right partners. It's not about the big numbers. It's about the shared values.